Welcome back, everybody, to linuxacademy.com. My name is Terry, and in today's course, we continue with Jenkins Quick Start. So now that we've set up a build or two, and we've got our folder here for my first build, my GitHub build, and remote log viewer, one of the things I wanted to do is let's go into these are the test builds. And perhaps we chose a name that was too long for the description of this folder. So we're just going to go over here and we're going to say test builds. We're just going to change it. That's not what this video is for. I just was getting aggravated by the name of the folder. So here we got a folder called test builds where we've got our test builds in them. Now, up to now, all of the builds that we've created a build, and then we've gone into the build and we've clicked on build now, which is fine if we're dynamically creating builds that we're going to run on demand. However, when you're using Jenkins, most of the time you're going to create a build that's going to run periodically. So we're going to take a look at two ways that we can schedule our builds to run periodically. One way, which is built in, which allows us to enter in a cron-like entry for scheduling a build, and one that uses a plugin. So let's go ahead and start with the plugin. If we go over here to the main window and we go to Manage Jenkins, then Manage Jenkins will bring us to our Manage Plugins. We want to go to what's available, and then here in the filter, let's go ahead and do Schedule. And what we're looking for is we're looking for the Schedule Build plugin. We're going to download now and install after restart. We'll go ahead and restart Jenkins so that it installs the plugin and restarts the service. While that's happening, what this does is it allows you to schedule a single build over any number of days, hours, minutes, or seconds from that period. It's a way of saying, I want you to run this one build one time at this particular time and or date. So it's really designed for just running a build a single time, scheduled as you would like it to be. So let's take a look at that. We'll log in here and we'll go over to Jenkins. We'll go to our test builds and let's create a new build. We might as well. Let's say scheduled build, and it's a freestyle project. Okay. We're not going to add any description. We're not going to do anything complex. All we're going to do is come down here and we're going to execute a shell, and we'll say sudo on var sudo cat on var log messages. Okay, so we have this build. Now, if we go back into the configure, you'll see that the plugin does not show up here, but where it does show up, if we go back to the build itself, we've now got this extra button that says Schedule Build. So if we go to Schedule Build, it's going to ask us for a time that we want to run that particular build. So let's get a current time. So it's 14:51 right now on the server. So let's run it at 2:52 p.m. So let's say today at 2:52 p.m. we'll hit the schedule and we'll go ahead and hit proceed. And then for whatever reason for this plugin, it doesn't immediately go back to the job. So we'll go back to my builds, go to scheduled build, and we'll see we have in the build history, we have number 1, which is pending. It's in the quiet period, means it hasn't gotten to the point where it's going to execute. Right now, it's scheduled to execute in 1 minute and 57 seconds. All that means, the expiration of 1 minute and 52 seconds is the expiration of the quiet period. So the quiet period is going to expire in 1 minute and 45 seconds, and then we'll actually get the results of the build provided we've set it up correctly. So through the magic of video editing, I'll go ahead and pause this. We'll come back and we should see the nice little blue icon that tells us that our build has successfully completed. In 1 minute and 30, we'll be right back. All right, so it looks like our build has completed. We'll go to the build itself. We'll go to the console output and see that we get a cat of the var log messages. It's concatenating the first 59 KB, but of course we can display whatever we would like. So we've got that way to schedule a build, and that schedules at one time, and the build for this particular schedule is never going to happen again under that schedule, because the scheduled build now is going to default to 10 p.m. on the next build that we've got. It always defaults to 10 p.m. in this plugin. That's not extremely flexible unless we're just going to create something, for example, that's going to do a special production build or a special deployment, and we want it to happen on a particular date and time, and we can use this easy plugin to do it. It uses what everybody's used to in terms of a date and time format. However, we've got the ability also to, in our configuration, we can say that we want to schedule it based upon a time. So if we go to the build trigger, triggers are what cause Jenkins to automatically do builds based upon some type of output or something happening. We can build after other projects are built. We can trigger builds remotely from a script. We can build when a change is published to GitHub. But in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to build periodically. So if we go to build periodically, right now, no schedules will ever run. And that's because we don't have anything here. This is a normal cron kind of format. So let's assume that we want to run the build. This is a build that we're going to run in the development environment, and we want to run it every 5 minutes. So we want to say every 5 minutes, we want to run this particular build, and we want it to run every day of every week of every month, all the time. Now, as soon as I hit the tab, it will tell us would last have run at 2:53, will next run at 2:58. So let's go ahead and indicate that it'll be 2 minutes from now. We'll run it every 2 minutes, starting at 2:56, and it will run every 2 minutes thereafter. So let's go ahead and save. Now that sets the schedule. Where you won't see now is you won't see it under build history under a quiet period. There's no notification. This is not a plugin that's saying, hey, I've already received a parameter and I'm going to do something in after this quiet period is up. We would have to determine the schedule by going into configure and checking those build triggers to determine when that particular build was going to run. So I'm going to pause here, and I'm just going to let this run for 4 or 5 times before we come back. And you'll see that what we should see at that point is the build history of this build having run periodically, meeting that 2-minute time frame. So we'll go ahead and pause and come right back and take a look at our output. Okay, as you can see from our build history, we've got so far 4 additional successful runs of this particular schedule. We can go into any one of them and we can see the console output, including the full log, which is going to continue to grow as we continue to do builds upon this particular node. So again, the most common way that you're going to use Jenkins is you're going to schedule builds to happen periodically. So the whole point of Jenkins is so that it can automate things that need to be done repetitively in a consistent manner. So you script them, you create the build, and Jenkins will execute it exactly the same every single time that you either do it dynamically, you click the build now, you schedule a build for some point in the future, or you use the build trigger, much like you use cron, to trigger the build periodically based upon the cron entry that you create. So these are the 2 ways that you'll most commonly use to schedule your Jenkins jobs. And we're going to go ahead and go back into configure here, and let's change our item to no longer build periodically so that we're not constantly running on this particular system. But for scheduling builds using both a plugin as well as a build trigger available from within Jenkins, That's all there is to it. My name is Terry for Linux Academy.